Stop making this mistake in Kingdom Come Deliverance too. Never get rid of your herbs. Even herbs that decay to 0 condition and have this red icon next to them can still be placed on a drying rack and will be returned to you at 100 condition once dried. And even when just using a drying rack, the herbs will eventually just teleport back to your inventory after a short while. There's no need to return to the drying rack. But Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 also has a wide variety of secret perks that you can unlock just by doing something. These aren't perk points spent, but rather these are secretly tracked by the game and awarded to you just by crossing a certain milestone with that skill. One of the most powerful of these perks that will literally save you hours of in-game time is actually pretty easy to get even from the earlier parts of the game. All you're going to need is Pebbles, that original horse. And if you already got rid of Pebbles for one reason or another, don't fret, I'll have something for you as well. If you didn't know, Pebbles is one of the cheapest horses you can get. You can find them at Samin from this horse vendor. If you pass the skill check, you can get Pebbles for free, but otherwise they'll be about 150 groschen, notably cheaper than any other horse in the game. And if while playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you ride Pebbles for 35 kilometers in-game, you will unlock the good old Pebbles perk, which will yield a massive increase to Pebbles stats. And this one's pretty big across the board. Stamina is what you're going to feel the most, as Pebbles can now ride for 65% longer. But their carrying capacity also gets a big boost, as it more than doubles with a 145% increase in how much Pebbles can hold, and the world will even react to this accomplishment. Typically, Pebbles gets some negative comments made about her for being a lowly horse, but after unlocking the good old Pebbles perk, random NPCs will instead sing her praises.
This horse must have cost a pretty groschen.
And the best part is, this isn't that bad. 35 kilometers isn't really that far of actual riding. When you're starting off trying to unlock this one, you could look under player stats and then general to see your current distance ridden on a horse to get a pretty good idea of how far you need to go. Although do keep in mind that's distance ridden on all horses, not just Pebbles, so if you've been stealing them or just using another horse, it's not only going to apply to Pebbles. But otherwise for me, just about 45 minutes of riding around, following roads around the map as I watch stuff on a second monitor got me this perk, and it probably is the one worth grinding out, as now you're going to get everywhere even faster, saving you tons of time down the line. But I know, there's a lot of you watching right now that are very frustrated because you gave up Pebbles for Herring, that being the free horse you can get via a quest, and now many of you might be realizing that Pebbles 2.0 with this perk has a lot better stats than Herring. Well, you actually have two options to rectify this. Herring also has a secret perk with Red Herring, and you unlock this in almost the exact same way. Just ride Herring enough to eventually get the perk. Unfortunately, to get Herring's perk though requires 50 kilometers of riding. And considering how much later in the game you're typically unlocking Herring, this is often quite a bit more riding in real terms compared to Pebbles, where you likely already have several kilometers behind you. And Herring stats are even better in some ways. The increase is lower as Herring starts off with better stats, so you're not going to notice as much of a jump, but comparing Pebbles 2.0 to Red Herring is really about what you want from your horse. Red Herring will offer better speed and stamina, so you'll be able to get around more efficiently and quickly, but Pebbles 2.0 offers better carrying capacity while still having relatively similar speed and stamina, as well as Pebbles has a much lower barrier to entry, only requiring 35 kilometers ran. So for me at least, Pebbles 2.0 is definitely the preferred option, and with that in mind, there is a way to get Pebbles back even if you gave them up for Herring. I did some testing, and even if you abandon poor old Pebbles for Herring, if you just go back to the Samin horse vendor and wait for a few days, for me it took about 5 days, eventually Pebbles will pop back up as a horse that is available for purchase, and in fact this horse vendor will actually offer you 245 groschen to take Pebbles back. In my game, I bought Pebbles for 150 groschen earlier on, but then traded them for Herring once I got the opportunity to get Herring for free. So not entirely sure how I'm entitled to this money, but hey, that's a cool bonus. Although a very important disclaimer here, if you are trying to get Pebbles back, do it as soon as possible. Based off certain decisions during a main story quest, later on, Samin might not be here in the same way. And that isn't all. I don't want to spoil all of them, but there are several other hidden perks in this game, including ones for stealth, blacksmithing, and even survival. But I also want to show you one of the best early game weapons that you can unlock in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 with Atman's Saber. This is a weapon with some genuine late game stats, including some incredibly high damage output. And what makes this so powerful is it's not only good regular weapon damage, but it also includes pretty good blunt weapon damage, which is going to be very useful when you're going up against armor armored enemies, which of course you're going to do a lot more of in the mid to late game. And a big part of what makes this weapon so amazing is it's incredibly easy to get. Simply ride over to the lower Cuman camp in Apollonia and you should find about 4 Cumans just hanging out here. The Cuman that's wearing the mustard or kind of orange looking apparel will be the one carrying Atman's saber, and actually also is usually carrying some of the keys for the nearby chests. And well, yes, you can just go here and fight through this camp to claim Atman's saber as a reward. You might not want or even be able to get through this. Like I mentioned, the saber is incredibly powerful, and that includes facing the person holding it. If they manage to land hits on you, they're going to deal a lot of damage. So alternatively, you can just ride up to this camp after midnight, and instead you'll be able to find nearly all of the enemies sleeping, with oftentimes just one keeping watch. So bring your dagger, get through one successful stealth takedown, and from there, you can very easily just take out or rob all of the remaining enemies, although technically you just need to rob this one, and then congrats, you have an incredibly valuable saber all to yourself, but also make sure to grab some of the other loot from this camp. So like I mentioned before, from a damage perspective, this really is one of the best one-handed weapons in this game, but depending on when you get it in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, it will have one major downside, and that is its strength and agility requirements are going to be very steep. You can still freely use the sword. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 doesn't have mechanics around making it so you can't use certain weapons if your stats are too low, but instead it's going to be more costly and less efficient to use that weapon. So for example here with Atman's saber, if my strength is too low, I'm going to be dealing less damage with the sword. But you'll actually feel the agility side even more, because if you have a subpar agility stat for a certain weapon, it'll make it so every attack with it will require more stamina than typical. So if you've noticed while playing you're just depleting your stamina super fast, make sure it's not the weapon or really your agility stat just being too low for your current weapon. Thankfully, you can get around this without much grief using a mix of exploits and even more secret features, because strength and agility were actually reworked in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. As the way these two stats will work in KCD2 is, the larger the differential between what the weapon requires as far as stamina and strength goes versus what your current stats are, the more of a bonus you're going to get. So put simply, if this sword requires 8 strength, but I have 10, I can use it to its full potential. But when I'm at 14th strength, I'm going to be doing even more damage with this weapon, because my strength stat is even further away from its required number. And the same exact thing is going to apply to agility with some of the stamina costs while using weapons, so stamina will be even lower if your agility is even higher. And the important part of all of this and how it pertains to this particular weapon with Atman's saber is it makes the train hard, fight easy, as well as the deft hands perks incredibly valuable all across the entire game. These perks are going to lower the strength and agility requirements needed by weapons. You can see here, it's how I'm able to get Atman's saber stats to be a little bit more forgiving than they typically are. But since having more strength and agility will always make those weapons better, these perks will always make those weapons better even if you're already meeting the requirements. And in reality, these are some of the most valuable perks in the game because they will directly improve your stats, making weapons hit harder as well as easier to swing, costing less stamina. And there actually is a relatively simple way to level up your strength and even vitality if you want to. Just walk around in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 while over-encumbered. All of the stats in KCD2 will describe ways to increase them in the final paragraph from the inventory screen, but some also have hidden ways. So while you just walk around over encumbered, you'll get about 0.8 strength and vitality experience per second, which is kind of a lot. Even around the mid levels, around level 10, I was able to upgrade these stats by just a couple of minutes of walking around while over encumbered. And you can actually exploit this even further with Tomcat, one of the skill teachers at the Nomad camp. Simply go to Tomcat and ask to practice a technique and then just don't do the technique properly. Tomcat is one of the few skill trainers in the game who will let you do the incorrect combos all day every day, but still stay in the arena with you. The trick here being that you're still gaining warfare as well as swords experience from this fight. Just by slamming Tomcat over and over again, a lot of my stats are going up, including strength. So you could hypothetically just sit here as long as you'd like, beating up Tomcat with the incorrect attacks until you max out all of the stats that are getting increased. Not necessarily the most fun way to experience Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but yeah, there's an exploit that you could abuse that'll likely be patched out in the future. And a pretty fun one I discovered while trying to get Atman's saber. It might be tempting to use photo mode to make sneaking easier, so you could go into the free cam and just kind of scout out the surrounding area, but the devs actually thought of that one. And as such, as soon as you return to your character from photo mode, Henry's going to say something out loud, which will almost certainly alert all of the nearby enemies to your presence. A pretty hilarious and honestly effective way to block photo mode stealth abuse. And if you are struggling to fight multiple enemies at once, there's one really nice tip that makes this a lot more approachable for mouse and keyboard users, and that's just to click the middle mouse button. Clicking this in while in combat is going to break that lock that you have on a current NPC and allow you to freely look around while you're holding down the middle mouse button, and as you release it, it'll lock onto a new enemy that you're looking at. This just makes dealing with multiple targets far easier. You can now dynamically look around and swap to who you want to be focused on. And one that's going to be very obvious to a lot of you, and then a game changer for a handful, you can fast travel by clicking E on these blue map icons. Sometimes there'll even be random events that you'll stumble upon while traveling somewhere. These aren't new events, they're just the same exact events you could see as you're riding around on some of the roads. But if you're just looking to make some more money in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, there's one method that seems to be standing above the rest right now, and that's stealing horses, which you can optimize to do really easily. Right here on the map is the Nomad Camp, and the horse vendor here will buy stolen horses for a good amount of groschen. I was getting about 300 groschen for many of the horses I'd bring in. You can easily do this by just jumping on and stealing some of the horses from Nebukov Fortress. There are a ton of horses here, and this is one of the common pieces of money-making advice going around right now, but honestly, I wouldn't do that. No spoilers, but there could be story implications from stealing all of these horses down the line, and frankly, I just think there's a better option. As conversely, that starting camp right from the start of the game, located here on the map if you've forgotten about it, well, this camp has now been taken over by bandits who will consistently bring horses back to that camp at a rate at about 2 horses every 3 days or so. This bandit camp is incredibly close to the Nomad camp, so in just a minute or so of effort, you can jump on a horse at the bandit camp, ride it over to the Nomad camp, and there's even a nice road so you could just follow it the entire way, and then congrats, you probably just made several hundred groschen from minimal effort, like literally 1 minute of work. Although there is a big asterisk around all of this because this Nomad horse vendor will run out of money. So while the first horse will often fetch a couple of hundred to even 300 groschen, that'll typically be almost all of the money this horse vendor has, so the second horse will fetch a much lower sum. And then he's broke, he actually won't accept any further horses after that. Thankfully, you can easily work around this by just waiting. After about 2 days, the horse vendor's money will reset, and considering every 3 days or so, new horses show up here, you probably see how this is very easy to cheese over time. What I would do is basically just hang out at the bandit camp. There'd be waves of bandits that show up every few days or so, but these are incredibly easy to deal with and honestly kind of a nice add-on. A lot of these bandits are just using starting game, low-grade gear, and armor. So if you looted Atman's Saber from earlier in this video, honestly, this is a great way to just level up some of the stats on your character to better use that weapon. A lot of these fights are super easy, and even though I was using massive amounts of stamina, that my damage was so high that I'd take down the enemies in just a couple of hits anyway, so it didn't really matter. And then after finishing off those bandits, I would just use this bed here to sleep, often get woken up by some more free kills, but then take over a couple of horses to this horse vendor and then just rinse and repeat until I had several thousand groschen. At some points, I did start running into issues about having the horse black market dialogue option disappear with this vendor, but the two things I found to fix this is, one, just make sure the horse that you're trying to sell is under this red tented area, and sometimes if even that wouldn't work, I'd have to save and reload the game. It seems like things are fairly buggy with this vendor overall, but after loading a save, I was always able to get this to work. And one of the other big problems with this strategy is you're going to need a lot of food to make this work, because you're spending a ton of time waiting and sleeping. Thankfully, this too has a super easy fix and pro tip, and that's just to grab some honey first. Honey is one of the best foods in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and it really hits on almost every major front. Honey never spoils. It provides nearly a third of your overall hunger need in just one shot with 31 nutrition. You can use it immediately after you wake up if you're a bit drowsy to get around that, and you can get a ton of honey for free very easily. You can find it here, just behind the carpenter in Troskowitz, right around here on the map. You'll find several beehives that you can just freely loot, and if that all somehow isn't enough honey for you, a short walk away is several more beehives, except these ones you'll need to rob, but even that isn't really that big of a deal. And just like that, I had enough food to keep me occupied for a literal week of in-game time, and after a week, you could return back for more free honey from these exact same locations. This basically makes it so you will never have to worry about food in this game ever again. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if a honey nerf is coming in one of the first updates. But while you are spending all this time waiting for horses, you can also unlock another really great way to make money with gambling. Right at the starting location is also a secret cave. If you kill the bandits and steal their keys, you can break into this chest which has a weighted die inside. You could also loot this right at the very start of the game. These weighted die are incredibly valuable as they have a very high chance to land on 1, which in this dice game is one of the best combinations of numbers that you can get. And what makes this ridiculously overpowered is every 7 days or so, this chest will reset. So the whole time you're standing here farming horses, you can also farm weighted dice. Every week or so you'll get 1, and once you have 6 of these, a full set, gambling just becomes trivial. Every round of dice, you'll have numerous 1s available to you, which makes winning this game super easy. In many of these attempts, I was winning before my opponent even got a chance to play. Just keep picking the 1s, and eventually you'll become very rich. The big downside, of course, is the time investment to get all 6 die. You'll literally have to spend 5 to 6 weeks in-game time just standing at this location waiting, but if you're farming horses already, this is honestly not that bad of a grind. And once you do have all 6 die, you can start making some real money. Although if you do find yourself waiting super often in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, stop. You almost certainly have a better alternative with reading. Most of these books in your inventory take several hours to get full value out of, and of course, they improve your skills. So next time you need to wait around, instead just spend some time reading whatever books you have on you. And if you are looking for just some more general money-making tips in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, one of the best ways to make money overall is thievery. Stealing is actually quite easy in this game. Most of the shops will have very easy to pick front doors. Like literally the locks will be easy to very easy, so even from an early part of the game, you can get through these. And once you make it inside, things are even simpler. Just locate the shop owner, and picking their keys from their body is relatively trivial. Even if it takes several attempts, almost nobody's nearby to discover you. And while doing this, make sure you loot the master keys. Oftentimes, there's going to be multiple pairs of keys on the shop owner's body, but you need the master keys to open up all of the doors and chests. And then once you have those, you'll often have access to hundreds, if not thousands of groschen worth of items throughout that location. And even just with this vendor, I was able to find 300 plus groschen in a chest. All this really took was lockpicking 2 very easy doors, and then successfully pickpocketing some keys off of a sleeping man. And the Troskowitz Armory is a pretty easy one to rob just by sneaking up behind the station guard. He'll almost always just be located here on the map facing away from you, and you could just knock him out, take his keys, and pretty much wreak havoc on this armory. Or at least that's how it should go. Sometimes a short tussle will need to occur before you could fully get through this one, but if you just make a quick save first, this is another way to quickly jumpstart yourself wealth-wise and get a lot of money from a very early part of the game. Unfortunately, what you'll find then is stolen items won't be able to be sold everywhere, but items do lose their stolen tag eventually. This is going to scale off of item value, so relatively inexpensive items will just lose the stolen tag after a day or so, and it seems like the overall ratio used by the game is about 5 days per 1,000 groschen. So as you get higher tier loot, it may end up taking several weeks for those stolen tags to drop, but just remember that for a formula of 5 days is about 1k. Although of course, perks can speed this up even faster. But if all of that was way too much work for you, there also is a very easy way to just get 300 groschen for free. Go here on the map, just a bit west of the Lower Samin Mill. Technically, you'll be tipped off to a woodcutter's chest in this area, but you could really just go here whenever. Down this clearing, you'll find the chest, which has a very hard lock on it. And if you don't want to deal with lockpicking that, you can just grab the key out of this nest, which is further up on that path. And a pro tip around getting this, stop using ranged weapons to shoot down bird nests, and instead just throw rocks at them. If you're in the crouch position, you can either use the G key on PC or R1/right bumper on controller to throw rocks at a target. And if you hit the nest, it'll fall over and be easily lootable. In this particular instance with this woodcutter's chest, it's a very easy way to get 300 groschen, a nice little money infusion right at the start of the game. But with that in mind, those are 25 secret features Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 never tells you about. Are you interested in more? Let me know in the comments down below if you want more secret features or even tip videos like this. I honestly have quite a few more that didn't make it into this video. But otherwise, get subscribed for even more Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 content. We have a lot more going on, even just in 2025 for this game, and I plan on covering all of it.
You want to try me?